Hey guys, welcome to a completely different type of video today, or a different type of topic. Because this is not about gaming, this is not about esports, has nothing to do with Heroes of the Storm, with StarCraft 2, whatever you might have been expecting. This is about books and about reading, because that's a huge passion of mine. Ever since I learned to read, I've been reading books. So I've been reading books my entire life, and I kind of read everything. Starting with early on children's books and making my way through a fantasy series like Harry Potter and whatnot to more serious books, reading through authors like Elizabeth George, for example, Ken Follett, and a lot of others that I really enjoy. But these days I actually read a lot of fantasy again, and of course one of the biggest series out there is Song of Ice and Fire. A few of you might know the TV series a little bit more in depth, which is Game of Thrones. But I want to talk about something completely different, because I've been asking in the past, especially on Twitter and also on the Twitch channel, for some recommendations, because I kind of run out of books really fast. I read very, very fast, so I'm always out of new books to read. So I asked people and they recommended a lot of books to me. And a few of those I didn't really enjoy too much, and I was a little bit curious as to why people really thought that these books would be really good fantasy books. And of course, reading is always a matter of preference, and what kind of book you really like is up to that as well. But a few of those really struck me a little bit, because I was well, I don't understand that. That book doesn't really have anything, and the plot is really obvious. So why would people enjoy that? The writing style isn't anything special either. And I talked about it with a friend. We always discuss books a little bit, and he actually said that he personally thinks that I read a lot more than a lot of the people that recommend books to me. So I have a lot more books to compare it to, and a lot more experience with that. So for them, it might be a great book just because they haven't read anything that really is a lot of better in comparison. And I feel that actually has a ring of truth to it. Not quite sure if it is, but it kind of fits in a lot of the cases. One of the series that was actually recommended to me, and that's very, very popular, and I think all of you know about it and have heard about it in the past, is Wheel of Time. I personally, Wheel of Time is one of the books, one of the series that has been out there for an eternity, and people recommend it all the time. They enjoy it, they read it. And I personally think that the series is utter trash. Wheel of Time should have been named Waste of Time, because in my opinion, that's exactly what it is. I was so disappointed reading through the books, and I started reading the books a few weeks before I had my laser eye surgery. So I continued after that with the audiobooks when I couldn't really read anything while I was just waiting for my eyes to recover. And I made it all the way until I think book 12 or 13. And people kept telling me the entire time, you have to read more, you have to read more. Because I was very vocal about me not liking the first few books. And I said, guys, I can't understand that. The series isn't all that good. This is not enjoyable at all. There's nothing special about it. So why would I read this? And people were like, oh, no, you have to read a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I kind of did that, and then later also, of course, listened to the audiobooks. And there were a couple of things through the series that I really liked. A couple of the characters, Matt especially, really were something that I could identify with, where I was yeah, I enjoy that. But in the end, just looking at the series, in a book 12 or 13, I was this is shit. This is really crap. This is a bad soap opera. And of course, Robert Jordan, the author of the series, he died before he could finish the cycle, so Brandon Sanderson started to complete it, and people were especially talking about the books that he wrote and said yeah, those are the books where it gets really good. But at this point, the series got already to a point where I said I can't enjoy this any longer. I think I read the first one or the first two books where Brandon Sanderson wrote them, and I didn't like the story at all. Just to give you two examples of what really ruined the series for me is, for example, just to give you a bit of an idea, is that there's something in the series that's called Balefire. And Balefire is basically just a tool that a lot of the magic realists in the series use, and you can just annihilate an entire army with it. But it doesn't only kill people, it kind of removes them from history. I don't want to go too much into detail of how the magic system works, because I don't think that all of you read it. But what basically happens is that people get completely erased. Every action that they ever accomplished in their life gets erased. And you can imagine how bad of a thing that is. If you ever watched the butterfly effect, you have a pretty good idea of what that can result in. So it is kind of agreed upon, the book talks about it, that Balefire should never be used. It's the worst thing in the entire world, and even the evil forces completely abandoned the idea of Balefire because what it did to the world. So in one of the books, a little bit earlier on, suddenly Balefire is also used to just kill a character, and then suddenly another character that he killed himself a little bit earlier survives. So the book and the series is not really consistent how it uses Balefire. At some point it said like, yeah, only the actions in the recent past are like affected. And then at another point it says like, no, everything is being erased. But at this point I could still get behind it. I was like, well, alright, okay, I can understand it. I don't like it when you revive a character, no matter what kind of excuse you really use for that. But, well, whatever, I don't have to like every single aspect of the book. But then a little bit later on, suddenly Balefire is used to erase an entire town. Like, there's an entire town, it just gets annihilated, or an entire, like, army. Like, really just a huge chunk, like, hundreds of people suddenly get killed by Balefire. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. There's, like, nothing that these hundreds of people did in their entire life, or, like, whenever, that had an impact on how the world worked. And stuff like that was just so inconsistent that it made me rage. I was like reading through the books, so I was like, this is bad. This is really bad writing. Another idea that the author has is like in the first few books, he creates like the Aes Sedai. And Aes Sedai, not quite sure if I pronounced it correctly, they're like they're like all women, or most of them are women, and they are like the magicians of the world. And it's all talked about how they are like really like noble, how they lived for hundreds of years, and they are like the elite class, okay? So people have a lot of respect for them, and it's like, it's a little bit crazy, like people are afraid of them, there are lots of mysteries around them, blah, blah, blah. The usual shenanigans. And then the more that you read, the more the author actually takes that into more of a joke, because at the end of like book 10, Aes Sedai are suddenly like a couple of girls that lived for several hundred of years, most of them, by the way. Not all of them, but most of them. And they run around like headless chickens. It's absolutely insane. Like, they make the most retarded mistakes, stupid things, and you read this and they're like, dude, like, you introduced this to me, like something that I should respect, that I should be even afraid of, like, that they ruled the world, that they have all this experience because they lived for so long and they have an impact on how the world is run and everything. And then suddenly it's all but just a bunch of girls that make stupid decisions like all day long. And the author just contradicts himself the entire time. So, Wheel of Time, in my opinion, just a series that is an utter waste of time. If you haven't read it just yet, don't do it. It's not worth your while. I can only recommend to not even touch those books. I have no idea why they are recommended at all. But when I said that in one of the chats, in the Twitch chat, I said that on stream, someone asked me, okay, like, what kind of books can you recommend? So I thought a little bit about it, and there are a lot of series out there right now that are just simply amazing. Unfortunately, most of them are not finished yet. Way of Kings, for example, is just like the second book was just released. You have the Kingskiller Chronicles, also the second book has been released, the third isn't out yet. With Song of Ice and Fire, you have a lot to read through, and it's probably the best fantasy series that was ever written, but we are still not done with it yet. And knowing Martin, the author, he will probably need another couple of years to complete that cycle. Like, just to give you a bit of an idea, I've started reading the books in like 2000, and back then he had 2 books, I think, released, and right now we are after book 5, if I'm not mistaken. So he takes like years to complete another book, and with Game of Thrones now being out and also taking up a lot of his attention, it's probably going to last another couple of years until he's finished with it. Yeah, the only thing that I'm afraid of is that the guy dies before he completes it. I know that he gave the story, by the way, to his publisher, but still, it's like the writing style that really keeps me reading it. So that's the most amazing part. But yeah, so I've been thinking about it a little bit, and all these series haven't finished yet. So I wanted to like give you a series that might interest you, that is a little bit more standard as well, but that's very well written and that I enjoyed a lot. And that's Dragonbone Chair. Dragonbone Chair is actually the first book of the series. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is the cycle. That's what it's called, by Tad Wiliams. And it's pretty straightforward in the way how it works. Like, the one amazing thing about a series like Song of Ice and Fire is that you never know what happens next, just because like the author goes in and kills characters, like main characters, and he writes suddenly a chapter from the perspective of an author that from a character that he thought was like the bad guy, and suddenly when you see it from his point of view, you suddenly realize, well, that guy isn't that bad at all. He has very good reasons for what he does, but it just makes him look bad. If you read a book like Dragonbone Chair, it's something where it's a little bit more straightforward. Like, you learn very early on, like, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And in a lot of books and also movies, we kind of know that already, and it's more about the way how the whole thing is accomplished. That's really the thing that captures us. And I feel that Tad Wiliams has a really good writing style. I enjoyed the series a lot. It's all about like a kitchen help in the beginning called Simon, who starts to just get like involved in a couple of things that are way above his head, and he has this learning curve where he suddenly starts to like have a more of an impact into what happens, and the storyline unfolds around that. I don't want to spoil too much, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but the series has been released like a while back, like years back, and it's 4 books in general. It's a lot to read, but I personally enjoyed it a lot. The author has a lot of twists in there, smaller twists, not the really big ones, but it's something where you can really identify with the characters. It's not only the one character that I just mentioned, a couple of storylines in the book that really make you love the characters and get you excited about what happens next. So if you ever want to read something that you really enjoy or that I enjoy, and you want to see if you might be able to get behind this as well, Tad Wiliams' Dragonbone Share, it's the first book of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. That's the name of the series I mentioned. And if you actually read it, I would really, really appreciate if you guys would drop me a comment after you're done with at least the first book, if you have a bit of an idea if you like the series or not. Because it would help me a little bit to see if people would actually like me to recommend books in the future as well, to recommend other series and standalone books that I really enjoyed, or if it's just something that I should probably never do again. So if you went through the entire video right now, I've probably been talking for like 15 or 20 minutes right now, then let me know what you think about it. Let me know when you read the books, what you think about them as well. You can, of course, always disagree with me if you are a huge fan of Wheel of Time, and I know there are a lot of fans out there. I know that there are probably a lot of people that will try to justify the 2 points that I criticized on. They're not the only points, guys. I'm still sticking with my point of view. I think the series is a massive waste of time. But if you want to read something good, something decent, still standard, then go for the Tad Wiliams series, Dragonbone Share being the first book. And if you actually enjoyed the video and if you like the recommendation, then give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment what you thought about it. And in the future, if you guys like it, then I might recommend a couple of other books to you that I've read in the past and that I enjoyed a lot. We might talk about a few other books that are very, very popular out there, but that I personally don't like for whatever reason, and we'll go through this. So that's kind of it for today. Hope you liked it. Gonna see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.